for any other reason really, other than we were absolutely fascinated by the sound of music. And the orchestra is just such a glorious place to play. I can't believe my luck when I do get to play with an orchestra. So.
I wouldn't say that. I would say that the magic of the orchestra is the number of sounds that you can create with an orchestra, from the woodwinds, the percussions, the strings, the brass, the French horns. All these elements are, each of them is a treasure that you can put your hand into and bring out a gem that you will assemble with another gem. That being said, the great thing about film music is that you don't have to have the classical lineup of an orchestra. You can do anything because you have microphones. So you can have, as in Shape of Water, 12 flutes, but you will hear them very clearly because they will be mic'd. Or you can have just strings and an electric cello playing on top of it, but because the electric cello is plugged into a console, or an amp, you can hear it over the strings. So I think what excited me a lot when I was starting to fall in love with film scores, that they were very different. Yes, there could be this full orchestra sound, which was so strong, but you could combine that with many other options. And I like playing with that a lot. I like to have, to disassemble the orchestra. No bassoons or no oboes or no flutes or just the strings or no brass or, you can experiment anything you want because you record and the sound will always cut through. While in a concert room, you can't do that easily.
Well, there's a lot of things about the orchestra that are sort of part of a social textbook that we've all learned. So the dangerous thing is we use the orchestra, we overuse the orchestra for the immediate effect of the language of film. And particularly, I think one of the things about big orchestras, is they kind of make films look more expensive sometimes. So you can kind of you can push the budget of a movie by using a very expensive sound, whereas if you just used 3 accordions for a big galactic kind of
please don't
sort of battle. I'm going to take that's now my my raison d'être is now to try and do 3 accordions in space. But it is true. If you think of Paris, Texas, the Wim Wenders, that's just a slide guitar, and that's an amazing emotion for the imagery and for the characters. So it has to be right for the film. But yes, the orchestras are such a wonderful thing to play with. I mean, we're composers, we didn't get into this for for any other reason really, other than we were absolutely fascinated by the sound of music. And the orchestra is just such a glorious place to play. I can't believe my luck when I do get to play with an orchestra. So.
I don't know. Frankly, I don't know. I know what as for my work, it's always the film, and mainly it's the story and the way the story is being told. If you go back to your bedtime stories, when you would be told by your parent any story, it's the way they would tell it that would be magical and bring you to dream and then to fall asleep. So when I start working on a film, if there's magic, I just fly with the film. So that's for the work. Now in real life, which is not far from that, if there's any real life aside from that, I listen to quite different things. Yesterday I was listening to Mahler by Boulez, to Edu Lobo, a great young Brazilian singer called Seu that I like a lot. Bill Evans always, once in a while, and Mozart. That keeps me rolling.
How about you, Jon? Talk a little bit about your inspiration, perhaps musically, perhaps in terms of literary books.
I have a giant pile of books that I've never read, like everybody else, by the side of them. So I've read all the forewords and half the first chapter. I now I now am officially sort of basically illiterate. I think I can't read a book the way I could do even 20 years ago. So it doesn't really come from that. I think it just comes from, it's always coming. A lot of inspiration does come from listening to other people's music, I must admit. For instance, I've heard Symphony No. 5 by Vaughan Williams many times, and I've always loved it. And I recently tried taking some cannabis, and I'm not a big drug user, but I tried taking some pretty strong cannabis, and then I listened again to it. I thought, this would be interesting, whether or not it changes. And I got, I think it's the second or third movement, the Romancer, which is one of the most beautiful pieces ever written. He didn't even write it for the symphony. He was trying to get it into an opera. Bits of it were written for an opera that never got done. And I've heard it and I've found it very emotional before, but I must have, it cued something on, I'd taken some edibles, and I listened to it again, and I was absolutely uncontrollable. The emotion was so intense. I after that, I literally couldn't listen to any sad music for about another 6 weeks. It was just too much. It nearly broke me, it really did. So I have to be careful now about weed and music, because it's the wrong piece of music on weed. It's just too much.
Alexandre, do you have any comparable experience?
No, but about the books, Jon, they make recording of books now. So in your car, when driving in LA, you can listen to books. You don't have to read them.
This is true. Got you.